Starting to dig into the West. Let's play a little Vegas odds makers with the Pac-12, and let's roll through another edition of Tip Off. Boom, 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 boom. Hope you got the Phil Johnson podcast because I thought it was quite good. Boom, 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 boom. Interesting comments about Cantor as well as how you balance the minutes of the picks. Tip Off today. How are you? That podcast is up on iTunes. I got to be honest. I've told a lot of you to go get Stitcher Radio. I have had such problems with Stitcher that last night I bought Dog Catcher. It's $4.99. I don't know yet whether or not it's worth it. But Stitcher just was cranking out on me and failing all the time, and I was pissed. And I was going to put some nasty thing up on Twitter. I decided that wasn't a very good idea. Such a bummer. The other day, I shouldn't share this story, but I'm about to. Am I? Really? Yeah. So the other day I'm at a Bees game, having a blast. Kid's birthday party up in one of the suites. We had just a wonderful time. And the kids are on the edge, and they're screaming at the hitters and this and that, and having a, it was a Sunday, and day game. And I mean, they're 6, 7 years old, and they're high-pitched, and I'm sure they're annoying, but they're having a blast, and they're yelling at the batter, your shoelaces are untied, and this and that, and 4 guys that are in the second tier with their turn around and yell, they can't hear you, but we can. So now, I mean, these are 7-year-old kids, so now they're all scared and crying and this and that. And can I just tell you how badly I would have loved to say, oh, well, if they can't hear us from here, maybe we should move right behind you so that there's a better chance the hitters could hear us. Well, I just made these kids cry, but I couldn't do that. It's kind of the same way I can't rip Stitcher on. So if anyone else having Stitcher problems, let me know, because I'm wondering if it's just my phone has gotten old and I'm over zapping it or whatever. On the other end, by the way, the 7-year-old kids were probably annoying, but they're 7 and they're having fun at a ball game. I don't know. I mean, this kind of gets into the whole debate of like the overzealous fan who's screaming and yelling the whole day, and the stereotype is the curmudgeon old guy or old lady says, "Can you please sit down? I can't see." And there's 2 sides to that story. Like if you're standing in front of someone, I kind of can buy that a little bit. Standing behind them, I guess you're bothering their. I don't know. I never know. I mean, I got where that guy was coming from. Actually, my kids, or the whole kids, were like 7 or 8 of them. It's a did, and it's high pitched and it's annoying and it doesn't have any part of the game. The kids are just having fun. It's a birthday party and they're having a blast. And this guy obviously decided that his time was more important than dealing with that. But like, I never know the right. I always, sports radio does that conversation all the time. I always hate it because I don't know the answer. On, if they're not using profanity, it's kind of like, well, then you just deal with it. They bought their ticket too. But so did the other person. You can't bother their time. And I did, actually, in college, I did a whole study on crowd behavior and antisocial behavior at baseball stadiums. It was very interesting, actually. Two things that I discovered in this research, which was, college level, probably wasn't great, but it fits. There were 2 things. The antisocial behavior actually happens the further away from the action. So in baseball, if you get down to the outfield sides, the further away from the action, the less connected to the action, the more likely you have antisocial behavior. The second thing is you get antisocial behavior from the people that show up for their night out. It's a big night, it's 3 or 4 guys or whatever. They're going to go out, they're going to have a heck of a night, and the game turns or badly or just boring, and this is their night of excitement. The third one that led to the most antisocial behavior, which I thought was interesting, was inside season ticket holder sections. When someone gives their seats away and a new person sits in it, and they're inside that subculture of the stadium, inside the culture of the stadium, there's a subculture of that section. How did we possibly get to this today? The subculture of the section in which there's kind of an acceptable norm of how you're going to cheer, what you're going to do. It can be as simple as, right, in certain sections in the Energy Solutions Arena, like they'll high five after good plays. They've kind of built that little culture amongst themselves. You bring somebody new into that culture, and they act against the norms of that group, and then you get antisocial behavior. So those were the 3 cases. Now, that study was done in 1990. It probably was. So, I mean, it wasn't bad. We met with 28 of the 30 24 of the 26 uh, Major League Baseball teams about their stadium, their crowd behavior. We actually got into it. I got class credit for it. It was all a genuine excuse to be able to drive across the country in 1990 and see a baseball game in every Major League stadium. Speaking of baseball, yes! 3-game sweep of the LA Dodgers. Few things are better than that. All right, I have started my prep for the season. What I try to do is dig into a team. You know, once we play someone, we generally will have there's trends and things that are going on with that team. And last year I published a bunch of my game notes. I don't know if I'll do that again because I didn't think anybody cared. Probably someone should let me know. But I did Dallas last night, and in the midst of this, I'm doing two things. I'm doing the team, prepping the team and the notes on the players and just reviewing a bunch of stuff. But also, then I'm running some predictive data, which is not as good as what Kevin Pelton or John Hollinger or probably John Schumann at NBA.com does. But the concept is I'm trying to create a rating value offensively and a rating value defensively. The defensive rating value doing this, to me, jumps out pretty interesting because the amount of players in the NBA who impact a game defensively are really very few. And frankly, actually, it gets interesting to how many people actually impact games. I mean, we have upgraded significantly with Marvin, Randy, and Mo in different ways. Mo to Devin's maybe not a huge upgrade, but definitely significantly upgrade. And the result of it, according to my data, is 3 wins. That's actually a buttload. That's like going from 44 to 47 or 47. We were 44 last year if you took the whole season, I think. So if you go to 44 to 47, or maybe we're 40, get to 40. I mean, those are huge amounts. But it's interesting that you add those 2 players. So each of those players probably increased us. You know, Marvin probably increased us 2 wins, and Randy increased us 1 win. Defensively, like, how many players are there that they go on a team and you suddenly change who they are defensively? Tyson Chandler did that to the Knicks, but what was really interesting when prepping for Dallas is they didn't slide at all defensively last year. They went from the 8th best defensive. They were the 8th best defensive team last year, the 7th this year. Now, they lose Brandon Haywood, who is, I think, one of those few players who impacts a team defensively. He's really quite good. And they put in Chris Kaman, who's not a very good defensive player. So I think they're going to slip defensively. I think they'll drop out of the top 10 defensive players. But they got rid of Kidd, who couldn't defend. Put in Darren Collison, who's too small to defend. So, I mean, but you really find very few players that impact defensively. I seriously am beginning more and more to believe it's philosophy. Every team Tom Thibodeau coaches is good defensively, regardless of who his players seem to be. And I wonder, and from our standpoint, we have not been very good defensively for some time. I think we made some adjustments on defending the three-point line, though that has never been as bad as everybody thinks. And our fouling is really the issue that is preventing us from being a good defensive team, and we'll see whether we deal with that. So I did Dallas. So I prepped Dallas last night. You know, Dirk's incredible. He did slip. There's something interesting going on Dirk. For those who don't know my theory, the NBA player begins to decline at 35,000 minutes, and then at 40,000 minutes really falls off the map. And Dirk's going to be interesting to watch because he is a different player than we've probably ever seen in the game. So how does he deal at the 40,000 minute mark? I think will be kind of worth seeing and will be interesting to know. But he has begun to slip. His field goal percentage slipped from 55 to 46 last year. There was lockout. There was the hangover of the championship. His percentage of possessions at the free throw line have declined for each of the last 3 years. He has hit the script at 35,000 minutes of fading. He's at 38,000. He should have another. This year should be in there, and then he goes off 40. Kobe's followed this. He's over 40, and he's on the wrong side of it. And frankly, Stockton and Malone, as much as we think they were indomitable, they did the same. So Dirk's slipping a little bit, but yet I was surprised a little bit of a few things on Dallas. One is Jason Terry is a huge loss to them. He's really been a fabulous player. They replaced him with O.J. Mayo. Mayo uses an NBA possession right below the league average. Terry was above. But what's interesting is, and Darren Collison uses a possession slightly below the league average. So you think, and Elton Brand actually used him pretty well last year. But Jason Kidd was really awful for them last year. And so Collison's an upgrade. Terry's it hurts them a little bit. But it was interesting. I ran their numbers. They're pretty. I mean, if you look at this lineup, I'm not quite sure what it'll be, but my guess is they're going to start something in the Darren Collison, O.J. Mayo, or probably Darren Collison, Vince Carter, Sean Marion, Dirk, Chris Kaman. It doesn't wow you, but Dirk's still a star. With a bench of Roddy Beaubois, Elton Brand, Brandon Wright, Delonte West, and there's another player, and O.J. Mayo. I'm assuming O.J. Mayo rolls into the Terry role. That's a pretty deep, good team, by the way. I was kind of surprised. Everybody's talking about, well, Dallas isn't the same. And I've been there a little bit. I ran Dallas's offensive numbers. I ran the Jazz offensive numbers and projections. And I've projected Favors playing 35 minutes, so he's suddenly getting as many offensive possessions as Millsap is. And some of those, and that hurts the Jazz because Favors is not anywhere near as good a offensive player as Millsap when you start to flip some of those numbers. And so the Jazz actually slip a tiny bit, and I have Randy Foye getting possessions, and if he could take all of the backup point guard possessions, that would help the Jazz. But putting every team in a 10-man rotation, the Jazz come out actually exactly the same as Dallas does offensively. Then you take the fact that last year Dallas was the 8th best defensive team, and the Jazz were the 22nd. I think Dallas slips, but do the Jazz get that high defensively? And so I actually think if I had to make a prediction, I still, off these numbers, just as they are, I probably still have Dallas above the Jazz, which I was surprised by. I didn't think that's what I would find, but that 10 is a pretty darn good depth of 10. And they are a better defensive team, and until we show we can be that good defensively, it's funny, for all this talk of everything we've talked about, the issue is defense. The issue is not three-point shooting. The issue is, it's about Favors and Hayward's development and the Jazz becoming a better defensive team. And until they're better than 22nd defensively, it doesn't matter what they do. And I talked to Phil a little bit about that in the podcast yesterday. So that's probably, if you get a chance, go grab it. But that was kind of interesting on the research on that. I don't love what Dallas has done, but when you kind of put it all together as a group, they've got those, the West is good, and those two teams are both very, very good. Interesting little thing to jump on for entertainment purposes only, or if you want to gamble, I don't care. I found an interesting site. I don't know anything about this site. I was just kind of goofing and looking around. It's called the Saturday Edge, and it's obviously, I'm guessing, some sort of a gambling site. And they had, they did a big, huge Pac-10 preview. So that's probably Pac-12 preview, if you're interested in that. And BYU fans, I apologize. There's nothing really for me to do here with you because there's not a conference, and so I don't have the same comparison. But they took three guys that they like. One guy from the College Football Matrix, another guy from College Football News, and another guy who have different predictions. And looked at how they predicted versus the over-under. What I thought was interesting is the number one universal bet, according to these three guys, is that Utah comes in from a Vegas line at 7.5, and they all have them at over. One guy has them at 8 wins, another has them at 8.9, another guy has them at 7.6. So it's not crazy over, but they all have them at over, which I thought was interesting. And I believe other than Oregon State, who's in at 4.5, and everybody has Oregon State above 4.5, there weren't many that were all over. I think Stanford's in at 7.5. Stanford and Utah are remarkably similar this year, as I talked about yesterday. And Stanford was right there. One of them had them up as high as 9. I can't see that happening. But the other one that was interesting is how really the Pac-12 South, USC comes in at 10.5, and not everybody has them matching that. Their lack of depth has got to kick in at some point, you would think. UCLA's pretty skilled, and I love UCLA's offense coordinator. He's the guy that was at Arizona State before, and I love that kind of offense of what they did there. Though it did seem to get less good as the year went on. You wonder if people figured it out. It'd be worth watching. I like what they've done. But there's just no one else close to Utah on the Vegas odds. I mean, USC's at 10.5 and Utah's 7.5. I wouldn't say is some great ringing endorsement of Utah in any way, shape, or form. But UCLA's at 6, Arizona's at 5.5, Arizona State's at 5, and Colorado's at 3.5. I mean, I almost feel like Utah's got that second spot in the Pac-12 a little bit out of default, and it's really the same in the Pac-12 North, where the Vegas line has Oregon at 10, Stanford at 7.5, Washington at 7, Cal at 6.5. I mean, Cal is a grand mystery. No one really knows where Tedford's taking that program. One of the projections of this computer system has Cal at 8. The other one has him at 4.5. That's the largest, looking over this, that was the largest discrepancy of any team that's in there. So it was interesting to look at all those items, see how they all look. UCLA would be the one team I think will be more of a threat for Utah than people are realizing right now, just because the talent level should be there. But I will say Neuheisel, when he left Colorado, they hit the bottom, have never recovered. When he left Washington, they hit the bottom, have barely recovered. I would suspect UCLA goes through more of this. I think you really might find out, both at UCLA and Arizona State, that when you pull the cover off of what Dennis Erickson and Rick Neuheisel were doing, it's far worse than you realized, and particularly at UCLA. The whole idea that UCLA's got all this talent may not be true at all. I'm not sure Neuheisel knows how to evaluate talent. From just and not because of what I'm not trying to be personal with him, but just look at what happened to him afterwards. I like Rick an awful lot. I think he's going to be fabulous in his new role in the Pac-12 network. Final thing, just a thought. Love to get anybody who's actually sticking with us at this point at 16 minutes in. Every time I hear a college football preview or hear somebody talking about, well, they got a junior college blank to fill the spot. Other than quarterback, Russell Wilson kind of disproved that, but I think Russell Wilson might be special. So maybe universally across the board, whenever I hear someone projecting a college football team and they say, oh, well, that offensive line's a lot better, they got 2 junior college offensive tackles, I got to be honest, it puts up a huge, huge, huge red flag to me. I don't have any research on this, but my general feeling is that anytime I hear that, it's a bad sign for that team. Even just think about Utah uses junior college kids a lot. Very rarely does that junior college kid kind of click in the way you think he's going to. I mean, who was that incredible receiver? I'm forgetting his name. He blocked a few kicks, but that's all he ever did. Everyone was so excited about it a few years ago. Utah they never pan out. John Cullen was right. I mean, there's somewhat of a reason why kids go to junior college. Something's if they. I mean, truthfully, if they could have, they would have gone to Division I straight out of high school. There's a reason why they didn't. And I just feel like that reason, it's just such a big jump, and expect guys to step right in. I mean, even if you look at Zach Maynard, the quarterback at Cal, went from Buffalo to Cal. That's not even a JC transfer, but I'd say he really struggled. So anytime you're projecting a team and you hear, well, JC guy filling that role, to me, one is that means that the team had nobody in reserve ready to fill that spot, which is an indictment of the team in their recruiting. Happens, but it's still an indictment. And number 2, it means they were desperate because they had no one. And so they just went and grabbed any junior college player they could. The best available junior college player at that position. And it is not often that guy is actually always good enough. He's just the best there is out there. All right. Hope you enjoyed today's tip-off. We'll continue with by the way, hashtag on Twitter is NBA Prep on all this stuff. Whoever alphabetically comes after D is who I'm doing tonight. Might be Golden State. I hadn't really thought about it. Who is it? Whatever. So, yeah, if I get to it tonight, as I expect to, and somewhat today, that's my next one. See you guys.